She fixed an engine that even the 12 best German engineers couldn't. Megan Miller held her toolkit with trembling hands as she walked through the gates of Global Motors Detroit. 12 German specialists had been trying for 3 months to solve a problem that had halted all production, threatening to lay off 1,000 workers if the experimental engine didn't start running again. "Are you sure you can fix what our best engineers couldn't?" asked Robert Vance, the company's CEO, watching the 28-year-old in her worn-out blue coveralls. Megan took a deep breath, recalling the words of her grandfather that had echoed in her mind since childhood. "Mr. Robert, I just need 3 days and full access to the engine," she replied with a steady voice despite her nervousness. The murmur of the German engineers filled the conference room. Alistair Sterling, the chief engineer, approached with a look of disdain. "This is ridiculous, Mr. Vance. How can a simple garage mechanic solve what our team couldn't in months?" "She's not just any mechanic," Robert defended, flipping through the resume he had received the morning before. "Megan has technical training from the National Vocational Institute and 15 years of experience with engines. Besides, we don't have any other options." The situation was desperate. The new hybrid engine represented the company's future in the US market. 3 months ago, during final tests, the prototype simply stopped working. Since then, the German specialists had been trying to find the problem, spending millions on diagnostics and replacement parts. Alistair crossed his arms, annoyed. "This is advanced technology, not a classic Beetle engine that you can fix with a makeshift patch." Megan felt her blood boil, but kept her cool. She had faced prejudice her whole life for being a woman in a male-dominated profession. "You can film every step of my work," she offered. "If I can't fix it, you can use the recordings to understand where you went wrong." The CEO sighed under pressure from the board of directors threatening to cancel the project. "All right, 3 days, but you'll work under constant supervision." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and hit like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us beginners a lot. Now continuing. Megan was led to the lab where the engine was mounted. It was an immaculate room with cold lights and tools organized like in a hospital. The engine, the size of a refrigerator, was opened like a patient on an operating table. "Impressive," she murmured, circling around the equipment. "Each part cost thousands of dollars," Alistair commented, watching her every move. "I hope your hands are clean." Megan ignored the taunt and began examining the engine differently from the engineers. Instead of using computerized diagnostic equipment, she leaned in and listened carefully. "What are you doing?" asked Sebastian, another engineer. "Listening," she replied simply, putting her ear close to different parts of the engine. The Germans exchanged incredulous looks. Alistair signaled for the camera to keep recording. "This is not scientific," he muttered in German to his colleagues. Megan knew a few words of German and understood the remark, but pretended not to have heard. She continued her analysis, using methods she had learned from her grandpa Arthur, an experienced mechanic who had worked in garages for 40 years. "May I see the test reports you did?" she asked. Alistair hesitated, but Robert signaled for him to hand over the documents. Megan spent 2 hours reading every page, making notes in an old notebook. "Why don't you use a tablet like everyone else?" taunted Ethan, the youngest engineer in the group. "This notebook belonged to my grandfather," she explained, without taking her eyes off the reports. "He taught me that paper and pen never fail when you need them most." At the end of the first day, Megan hadn't touched a single tool. She just observed, listened, and took notes. The engineers were impatient. "She's wasting time," complained Alistair to Robert. "Tomorrow, if she doesn't show progress, stop this nonsense." "Give her 1 more day," asked Robert, who was under pressure from the board to find a solution. That night, Megan returned to her small apartment in Dearborn. On the walls there were photos of Grandpa Arthur next to old cars he had restored. In a drawer, she kept dozens of notebooks with his notes on mechanics. She spent the night reading the notebooks, looking for something that might help. In one of them, she found detailed drawings of hybrid engines that her grandfather had seen at an auto plant where he worked in the 90s. "Grandpa, help me," she whispered, caressing the photo of the smiling man. On the second day, Megan arrived more confident. She began disassembling specific parts of the engine, following a sequence that seemed random to the engineers. "Where did you learn that technique?" asked Sebastian, genuinely curious. "With my grandfather. He used to say, every engine has a personality, like a person. You have to get to know it before trying to heal it." Alistair rolled his eyes but kept filming. The camera recorded every move Megan made, every part she removed and examined. Around noon, she suddenly stopped while examining a small electronic component. "Here," she said, pointing to an almost imperceptible solder joint. "The problem is here." "That's impossible," protested Alistair, approaching. "We checked each circuit dozens of times." "You checked if the circuits were working," corrected Megan. "I'm checking if they're in the correct position." She showed that the component was shifted by less than a millimeter, something that wouldn't affect static testing, but would cause failures when the engine was running. "How did you notice that?" asked Robert, impressed. "My grandfather taught me to pay attention to details that seem insignificant. He used to say the devil is in the details." Alistair examined the component with a magnifying glass and admitted there was a small misalignment, but insisted it couldn't cause a total failure. "Let's test it," proposed Megan. During the repositioning of the component, she noticed that Alistair and other engineers were whispering to each other in German. Although she didn't understand everything, she caught words like sabotage and unmöglich. "Do you think I sabotaged the engine?" She confronted them directly. An awkward silence took over the room. Alistair cleared his throat. "It's just very convenient that you found the problem so quickly." "Convenient?" Megan felt anger rising. "You called me because you couldn't solve it. Now that I found the flaw, you think I cheated." Robert intervened before the argument heated up further. "Let's focus on the solution. If the engine works, all doubts will be cleared." The test was scheduled for the next day. Megan spent the afternoon adjusting other small details she had noticed. She worked late, alone in the lab, while a security camera recorded everything. On the morning of the third day, she arrived and found some of her tools out of place. Her heart raced when she realized someone had tampered with her work during the night. "Are you sure you left everything like this?" asked Robert, reviewing the security camera footage. "Absolutely," she replied, checking every adjustment she had made the day before. To her surprise, she discovered that all the modifications were intact. Whoever had touched her tools couldn't identify which adjustments were important. "It might have been the night cleaning crew," suggested Alistair, but Megan noticed nervousness in his voice. During the preparations for the final test, she noticed that several engineers seemed far too tense for people who should be rooting for success. "You want me to fail?" she asked the group directly. "Of course not," Klaus replied quickly. "We're just skeptical about unconventional methods." The company director arrived accompanied by 2 members of the administrative board. The pressure was immense. If the engine didn't work, the project would be cancelled and hundreds of jobs would be lost. "Ready?" asked Robert. Megan took a deep breath and pressed the ignition button. For a few eternal seconds, nothing happened. Then, gradually, the engine began to hum softly, gaining strength until it reached perfect operation. The silence in the room was replaced by exclamations of surprise and relief. The numbers on the monitors showed that the engine was operating within optimal parameters. "Incredible," Sebastian murmured. Klaus, however, did not seem to share the general joy. He approached the computers and began checking the data obsessively. "There must be some error in the sensors," he insisted. "Klaus, the engine is running perfectly," said Robert, beaming. "For how long?" the chief engineer questioned. "It can work now and fail again tomorrow." Megan watched Klaus's reaction with growing suspicion. Why did he seem disappointed with success? Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, feel free to hit like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. "Can we run a duration test?" she suggested. "Let the engine run for 24 hours under different conditions." "Excellent idea," Robert agreed. During the extended test, Megan stayed in the lab, monitoring every parameter. Klaus also stayed, claiming he wanted to better understand the applied solution. "How did you really discover the problem?" he asked when they were alone. "I already explained. Observation and experience." "Does your family work at automakers?" The question caught Megan off guard. She hesitated before answering. My grandfather worked at several companies in the automotive industry. Including this one? Megan's heart raced. How did Klaus know that? He did. Why do you ask? Klaus smiled in a way she interpreted as threatening. Professional curiosity. It's interesting how knowledge passes from generation to generation. That night, after the engine completed 24 hours of perfect operation, Robert organized a small celebration. Megan was congratulated by everyone, but she noticed that Klaus and a few engineers kept their distance. "You made history here," said Robert, toasting with soda. "Would you consider a job offer?" "Thank you, but I like working at my shop," she replied politely. "Then at least accept the payment. It's the least we can do." Megan was about to accept when Klaus approached the group. "Before that, I need to clarify something," he said, holding a tablet. "I found something interesting about Ms. Miller's family history." The atmosphere grew tense. Robert raised an eyebrow. "What kind of issue?" "Arthur Miller, our heroine's grandfather, was fired from this company in 1995 for irregularities." Megan felt her blood run cold. Klaus continued, reading from the tablet. "According to the records, he was accused of sabotaging equipment and stealing parts. He was fired without benefits." "That's a lie," Megan burst out. "My grandfather was an honest man." "The documents suggest otherwise," Klaus insisted. "And now his granddaughter magically appears to solve a problem that experts couldn't." "Very convenient." Robert looked at Megan with a worried expression. "Is it true that your grandfather worked here?" "Yes, but he never did anything wrong," she defended, fighting back tears. "He was fired because he uncovered accounting fraud and threatened to report it." "A convenient version of the story," Alistair remarked dryly. The celebratory atmosphere turned awkward. Some employees started whispering among themselves. "Maybe we should investigate further," suggested one of the board members. Megan felt betrayed. After solving the problem no one else could, she was being treated like a criminal. "You want to investigate," she said, struggling to keep her composure. "Then go ahead. But first, let the engine run for another week. If it fails, I'll take full responsibility." "And if it doesn't fail?" Robert asked. "Then you owe me an apology, and a serious conversation about what really happened to my grandfather." Alistair seemed pleased with the proposal, as if he knew something the others didn't. "I accept the challenge," he said. "1 week of intensive testing. If the engine holds up, I'll publicly acknowledge your merit." Over the following days, Megan monitored the tests remotely through reports sent by Robert. The engine continued running perfectly, but she knew Alistair was up to something. On Thursday, she received a troubling call. "Megan, you need to get here urgently," Robert said. "Alistair is claiming the engine shows signs of fatigue." She rushed to the plant and found Alistair standing in front of a computer, pointing at graphs showing minor fluctuations in the engine's parameters. "Look here," he told a group of engineers. "Efficiency is gradually dropping. It's only a matter of time before it fails completely." Megan examined the graphs and noticed something odd. "Are these today's data?" "Yes, collected over the last 2 hours." "Then why does the system timestamp show yesterday?" Alistair paled slightly but quickly recovered. "It must be a system synchronization error." "Or you're manipulating the data," Megan accused. "How dare you accuse me of—" "Enough," Robert interrupted. "Let's go check the engine in person." In the lab, the engine was still running smoothly. Megan connected her own diagnostic equipment and confirmed that all parameters were normal. The data Alistair showed were altered, she concluded. "That's a very serious accusation," Robert said, looking sternly at Alistair. The German engineer was cornered, but still tried to defend himself. "She must have accessed the system and changed the data to frame me." "I don't have access to your system," Megan countered. "But I can prove you're lying." She showed that she had saved backups of the original data on her own equipment, proving that Alistair had falsified the information. Robert turned red with anger. "Alistair, you're fired. Unacceptable, unethical behavior." "Wait," Megan intervened, surprising everyone. "Before you fire him, I'd like to understand why he did this." Alistair looked at her with hatred, but also curiosity. "You're saving my job. Why?" "Because I want the truth about my grandfather. and I suspect you know more than you're saying." Silence stretched for long seconds. Finally, Alistair let out a heavy sigh. "Your grandfather and wasn't fired for theft." "Go on," Robert encouraged. He found out that some of us, the foreign engineers, were getting kickbacks for specifying more expensive parts than necessary. It was a small scheme, but profitable. Megan felt a mix of relief and anger. "And you accused him of theft to protect yourselves?" "It wasn't my idea," Alistair defended himself. "I was just an intern back then, but when I saw your name on the list of mechanics, I recognized the last name. I was afraid you might know something." "So, you tried to sabotage me?" "I didn't sabotage anything, I just tried to cast doubt on your ability." Robert was shocked by the revelation. How many people were involved in this scheme? "Most of them have already retired or moved to other companies," Alistair admitted. "Only Sebastian and I still work here." Sebastian, who had remained silent until then, stepped forward with a guilty expression. "I was young and needed the money," he confessed. "Your grandfather was an honorable man. He didn't deserve what we did to him." Megan felt tears streaming down her face, but they were tears of relief. Finally, the truth about her grandfather had come to light. "I want this documented," she said. "My grandfather deserves to have his name cleared, even posthumously." "Of course," agreed Robert. "And Alistair, Sebastian, you're both fired immediately." "Wait," Megan said again. "I have a different proposal." Everyone looked at her in surprise. "Instead of simply firing them, how about we use this situation to do something positive?" "What do you have in mind?" asked Robert. "My grandfather always dreamed of teaching mechanics to underprivileged youth. How about we create a scholarship program in his name? Alistair and Sebastian could contribute part of their salaries to fund the project." The proposal caught everyone off guard. Alistair and Sebastian exchanged glances, visibly relieved not to be fired. "It would be a way to honor your grandfather's memory," Sebastian agreed. "And you'd have the chance to make amends for the harm you caused," added Megan. Robert smiled, impressed by the maturity of the proposal. "Excellent idea. Let's create the Arthur Miller Technical Scholarship. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and hit the like button and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers." Now continuing. In the weeks that followed, the engine kept running perfectly. The company resumed normal production and the project was deemed a success. Megan became something of a local celebrity, being interviewed by newspapers and TV shows. During one of these interviews, she met Margaret Thompson, a 68-year-old businesswoman who had followed the story in the news. "My granddaughter is the same age as you," Margaret remarked after the recording. "She's studying engineering, but she faces a lot of prejudice for being a woman." "It's a constant challenge," Megan agreed, "but it's worth persevering." "Would you like to hear my story?" Margaret asked with a mysterious smile. Megan accepted the invitation and was surprised to discover that Margaret owned one of the largest auto parts chains in the United States. Even more surprising was learning that she had started the company with borrowed money, facing resistance from suppliers who didn't believe a woman could succeed in the business. "Your grandfather sold me parts for several years," Margaret revealed. "He was one of the few men who treated me with professional respect." "You knew my grandfather?" "I did. When I heard about him being unfairly fired, I tried to hire him, but he preferred to set up his own shop." Margaret showed old photos where she appeared alongside Arthur at an auto parts fair in the 1990s. "He talked about you a lot," she recalled. "He said you would become a great mechanic." Megan was moved to see the photos of her grandfather smiling next to the businesswoman. "Why didn't he ever tell me about this?" "Your grandfather was humble. He didn't like to boast about important friendships." Margaret then made an unexpected proposal. "How about we expand the scholarship program? I can contribute resources and contacts." "That would be amazing," Megan agreed. "But we don't want to build something too big right from the start." "Wisdom from someone who understands sustainable growth," Margaret approved. "Let's start small and grow naturally." Together, they developed a plan to offer 20 scholarships in the first year, with the potential for gradual expansion. The program would include not only technical training, but also lessons in entrepreneurship and citizenship. During the preparations, Megan made a discovery that would further change her perspective on her grandfather. Margaret took her to visit a warehouse where she kept old company documents. "There's something here that I believe belongs to you," said Margaret, handing over a dusty box. Inside the box, Megan found dozens of her grandfather's notebooks, much more detailed than the ones she had. There were engine designs, ideas for vehicle improvements, and even sketches of a workshop school. "How did these notebooks end up here?" "Your grandfather gave them to me to keep shortly before he passed away," explained Margaret. "He said that one day you would look for answers and would need them." Megan flipped through the notebooks with tears in her eyes. In one of them, she found a detailed design for exactly the type of engine she had repaired at Global Motors Detroit. Her grandfather had anticipated problems and solutions that would only become relevant decades later. "He was a visionary," she murmured. "And you inherited that trait," observed Margaret. In another notebook, Megan found a letter addressed to her, written in her grandfather's trembling handwriting from the last years of his life. "My dear Megan, if you are reading this, it means you have found your path in mechanics, as I always knew you would. Don't let anyone diminish your dreams because you are a woman. The world needs people like you, who see solutions where others see problems. The knowledge in these notebooks is my gift to you. Use it to help others, as Margaret helped me. Never forget that true success is not what you achieve, but what you leave behind. Be proud of who you are and where you come from. Our family has always been of honest and skilled workers. Continue that tradition. With all my love and pride, Grandpa Arthur." Megan cried heavily as Margaret comforted her with a maternal hug. "He knew this day would come," said Margaret softly. "He always had faith in you." The inauguration of the Arthur Miller Technical Scholarship took place 3 months later, in an emotional ceremony at Global Motors Detroit itself, where it all began. Robert insisted on hosting the event as a way to make amends for the injustice committed against Megan's grandfather. Alistair and Sebastian, who had remained in the reparations program, gave speeches apologizing publicly for their past conduct. Both committed to contributing not only financially, but also as volunteer instructors. "It's the least we can do to honor the memory of a man we tried to wrong," said Alistair, visibly moved. 20 young people from underserved communities received the first scholarships. Among them was Chloe, an 18-year-old girl from East New York who had dropped out of high school to work. "I never thought I would have an opportunity like this," Chloe said to Megan during the ceremony. "My grandfather always said that every person deserves a chance to show their potential," replied Megan. "Now you have yours." Margaret, who had become a kind of mentor to Megan, announced during the event that she would allocate part of her inheritance to ensure the program's sustainability for the next 20 years. "Arthur Miller taught me that investing in people is the best business there is," she declared. "This program is my way of giving back everything I learned from him." The ceremony was attended by local authorities, representatives from other companies in the sector, and journalists. Megan's story had spread, inspiring similar initiatives in different regions of the country. During her speech, Megan held her grandfather's notebooks and looked at the audience full of hopeful young people. "My grandfather always believed that knowledge is only valuable when it is shared," she said. "Today we begin to fulfill his dream of teaching and empowering the next generation." She briefly told her grandfather's story, from his early years as a mechanic to the injustice he suffered, and the truth that finally came to light. "He taught me that it doesn't matter how many times you fall, but how many times you get back up, and also that one person alone may not be able to change the world, but they can change the lives of a few people, and those people can change the lives of others, creating a positive cycle." After the ceremony, Megan received an unexpected offer from Robert himself. "I'd like you to consider becoming the supervisor of our innovation program," he offered. "Thank you, but my mission now is with the scholarship program. What if I told you the position would include overseeing partnerships between the company and the program? It would be a way to ensure more young people get opportunities here." Megan considered the proposal. It would be a chance to positively influence the company's culture and create more opportunities for people like her. "Can I keep my workshop?" "Of course. The position would be part-time, at least initially. Then I accept." In the following months, Megan split her time between the workshop, the scholarship program, and her new responsibilities at the automaker. It was a period of intense learning and personal growth. The scholarship program quickly showed impressive results. Chloe stood out among the students, demonstrating a natural aptitude for complex diagnostics. Alistair, initially resistant to the role of instructor, discovered he enjoyed teaching and became one of the most beloved teachers. "I never thought I would find satisfaction in passing on knowledge," he confessed to Megan during a teaching meeting. "My grandfather used to say that teaching is the best way to keep learning," she replied. Margaret became a constant presence in the program, not only as a funder, but as a personal mentor to the young people. Her experience as a businesswoman who overcame prejudice especially inspired the female students. "When I started, programs like this didn't exist," she would say during her lectures. "You have an opportunity that my generation didn't have. Make the most of it." 6 months after the launch, the program received national recognition from the Department of Education as a model of social inclusion and professional training. During the award ceremony in Washington, D.C., Megan had the chance to meet other coordinators of similar programs from across the country. It was moving to discover that her grandfather's story had inspired initiatives in places as far away as Seattle and Austin. "I have created something bigger than you imagined," the Secretary of Education remarked during the award presentation. "The credit goes to everyone who believed in the proposal," Megan replied humbly. Back in Detroit, she found a surprise waiting at the workshop. Chloe had developed as her final course project a solution to a chronic problem Megan faced with old engines. "How did you come up with that?" Megan asked, impressed by the creativity of the solution. "I remembered a note from your grandfather that Mr. Alistair showed in class," Chloe explained. "I adapted it to the current problem." Seeing a young woman from the outskirts applying her grandfather's knowledge to solve contemporary problems deeply moved Megan. It was exactly the kind of continuity that Arthur had dreamed of. By the end of the first year, all 20 scholarship recipients had passed their final exams. Even more impressive, 15 of them had already found jobs or internships at companies in the automotive sector. "That's an exceptional success rate," Margaret commented during the graduation ceremony. "The secret is selecting people with potential and giving them the right tools," Megan explained. Chloe was invited to continue her studies at the automaker following the path of engineering. Other students chose to open their own workshops or specialize in specific areas like automotive electronics. During the graduation party, Alistair gave an emotional speech. "When I arrived in the United States, I thought I would come to teach German techniques to Americans," he said. "I discovered I had much more to learn than to teach. These young people, and especially Megan, showed me that true technical excellence comes from the combination of knowledge and humanity." Sebastian, who had become the program's pedagogical coordinator, announced that he was studying English more seriously to better communicate with the students. "I want to understand not just the words, but the expressions and American culture," he explained. "I realize this is essential to be a good educator." The story of Megan and the program reached the ears of television producers who proposed making a documentary about the project. Initially reluctant, she eventually accepted when she realized that the exposure could help inspire similar programs. During the recordings, Margaret revealed something that even surprised Megan. "Arthur asked me to take care of you if anything happened to him," confessed the businesswoman. "I promised I would do that, but I never imagined you would be so independent." "You kept the promise by keeping his notebooks," thanked Megan. "It was only the beginning. I intend to leave you in charge of the foundation when I am no longer here." The prospect of taking on such a big responsibility frightened Megan, but Margaret reassured her. "You have time to prepare, and you won't be alone. Chloe and the other graduates will become your partners in this mission." During the second year of the program, Megan implemented a new feature, weekend workshops where scholarship students taught basic mechanics to the community. The initiative was so successful that several public schools requested partnerships. "It's amazing to see how knowledge multiplies," she observed during one of those workshops, watching Chloe explain basic engine concepts to teenagers from her old school. The program also began receiving visits from delegations from other countries interested in replicating the model. Megan became a speaker at international conferences on technical education and social inclusion. "Never imagined I would be speaking English about my grandfather's teachings," she joked during a presentation in London, drawing laughs from the audience. 3 years after that fateful day when she had been called to fix the engine, Megan reflected on all the changes in her life. The small workshop in Dearborn had become a reference center. Global Motors Detroit had implemented several of her suggestions to improve processes, and the scholarship program had already trained 60 young people. But the biggest change was within herself. From a mechanic struggling to prove her worth, she had transformed into a leader, inspiring others to find their own paths. "What would your grandfather say if he saw all this?" asked Margaret during a lunch on the program's 3rd anniversary. "That there is still a lot of work ahead," replied Megan, smiling. "He always said that achieving something is just the first step. What matters is what you do next." And there was much to do. Plans to expand the program to other regions, proposals for partnerships with universities, invitations to advise public policies on technical education. The future was full of possibilities. That afternoon, alone in the workshop, Megan opened one of her grandfather's notebooks to a page she had marked with a paperclip. In it, Arthur had written a reflection that seemed prophetic. "The true measure of a person's success is not what they achieve for themselves, but how many doors they can open for others. Every young person you teach carries a piece of your knowledge forward, multiplying your impact on the world." She smiled, feeling her grandfather's presence in those words. Outside, she heard the sound of engines and young voices. They were her new students arriving for the night class, carrying dreams and hopes much like the ones she had nurtured decades earlier. Megan closed her notebook, put on her coveralls, and went to welcome them. There was work to be done, knowledge to share, and futures to build. That was exactly what Grandpa Arthur would have done. End of story. And you? What did you think of this journey of perseverance and achievement? Tell us in the comments which part moved you the most and if you know any similar story. Your opinion is very important. Leave a like if the story touched your heart and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other inspiring stories like this one.